from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome to my channel. Welcome to Monday afternoon. It is Monday afternoon for me, second round of videos for you. And let's talk about an update on a story that we have been covering since the end of May. Myka and James Stauffer have been the center of a humongous controversy on YouTube after they had made a video and they announced to their subscribers, over 700,000 at the time, that they had placed their adopted son Huxley in a home of another person and had essentially given him up for adoption after they adopted him, if that makes sense. This was a massive issue because Myka and James Stauffer had utilized the adoption stories about Huxley in order to grow their channel. In fact, in an interview, James Stauffer actually described how their channel grew.
Within the first 4 years, we're about 70,000 subscribers we got to, and we started to take it more seriously, like I said, after that first 2 years. But we still had a lot of work to do and a lot of learning. And we also Myka was starting her channel, so we were focusing a lot on that, and with equipment and all of our different gear, it kind of helped bring things up on that channel as well. But when we went to China to adopt our son, Huxley, we had a lot of people from China, from other countries, and even our followers here in North America kind of following along with us, and they were getting really revved up, and everybody started getting super excited about it, and we're like, this is really cool. So at that point, we started revving up our content, especially when we went to China. We took all of our kids with us. So
that's awesome.
For 2 weeks, we were putting up daily vlogs, and everybody was loving it, and we kind of just started really running with it from there.
Okay, so you did hit the road. You did do some traveling.
I guess we did. Right? I guess we did.
You
did
have that piece in there.
It's a big trip.
Okay, fantastic. So you guys did something big in your life, and you shared it with everybody, and you really started to see that growth.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So what's one of the things that you're most proud about with your channel? Looking at over the course of all these years that you've done this, what's something that really sticks out to you that you're really proud about?
As you can see in that interview, he claimed it was with Let's Connect, and they did a Let's Connect with YouTubers interviews, and James says, you know, we only had around 70,000 subscribers, and then after we had all of these subscribers, we really got serious when we went to China, because then all these people were interested in the story of Huxley, and that's really how our channel grew, and we just went with it. Myka has been adamant that her channel was actually not a product of Huxley, and in fact she said that she did not adopt Huxley for wealth. In her statement she said, lastly, to debunk a couple complete rumors, we did not adopt a child to gain wealth. While we did receive a small portion of money from videos featuring Huxley and his journey, every money and more went back into his care. Getting Huxley the care that he needed was an expensive, and we made sure to get every service and resource we could possibly find. However, in that interview, he literally said, well, before we went to China, our channels were around 70,000 subscribers, and we hadn't really been taking it super seriously, but we really decided to ramp things up with our trip to China, and then after our trip to China, we just sort of ran with it. Sounds a little bit hypocritical here because she says, we didn't do this for fame and wealth, and then James is literally in that interview saying, well, we kind of did it for fame and wealth because this trip catapulted our channel into mass success. Okay, so getting that off the books, there was this other thing that has been going on. So once the story hit the headlines and it was everywhere, suddenly people were worried about what happened to Huxley, because in their video they claimed that they had placed him with another family, and people grew concerned about where he was. They said that they were going to respect his privacy. They began to remove content of him from their channel. They deleted their Stauffer Life channel, and they started to focus on other channels like Myka's channel, The Cash Crush, and James's The Stauffer Garage. Eventually, after their story goes viral, Delaware County Sheriff's Office says that they are going to investigate. They release a statement on Instagram which basically says they are going to be doing a multi-departmental investigation into the whereabouts of Huxley. Shortly after they began the investigation, they brought out a statement which said, the Delaware County Sheriff's Office has received several inquiries regarding the welfare of a local 5-year-old child who was recently given up for adoption. This child is not missing. Our primary concern is for the well-being of this child as well as the other children in their household. Our investigation is ongoing, and we will include contact with all children to ensure their safety. All adoption cases are confidential. and must go through a thorough process with specific requirements and safeguards. In private adoptions, there are the same legal requirements but must be adhered to. These include home studies as well as background checks on the adoption parents. In this case, we are confident that the appropriate process is occurring. In addition, both parties are being represented by attorneys to ensure full compliance with the court process. Due to the confidential nature of this case, we will be releasing any specific information or further comment. After they do that, that is on June 3rd, they basically say, okay, we know that where he is, we know that everything is fine with where he is, but now we're going to do a welfare check on the kids. So we're going to make sure that he's okay, we're going to make sure the other kids are okay, and we're going to do a multifaceted investigation. Now, when Myka came out with her statement last week on Instagram, she actually claimed we are not under investigation. In her statement, she said, secondly, we are not under any type of investigation. I'm hoping to share more from my side of the story soon. Which is funny because literally on June 3rd, Delaware County Sheriff's Office says they are under investigation. Myka says last week, we are not under investigation. And then finally today, Delaware County Sheriff's Office announces that the investigation into the Stauffers has actually ended. And they shared a statement on Instagram which said the Delaware County Sheriff's Office has completed its investigation related to a local adoption process, which has been highly publicized in the news and social media by other interested parties. The case is closed without any charges. We remain committed to the public transparency of government agencies as well as the protection, privacy, and safety of all Ohio residents. As all such public records and confidentiality laws and exceptions to which we are duly bound to uphold are available through the state of Ohio. And then they provided a way to actually obtain records if people were interested in obtaining them. So I went ahead and made a formal request to the Delaware County Sheriff's Office and requested all information that they could provide me into the investigation related to Huxley to provide you with an update. The documents that they sent to me, which were redacted, provided me a lot of details about everything that went into place into the adoption and into the placement of Huxley in the other home. Some of the interesting things here, and I'm not going to reveal all of it, but it's a very lengthy statement, and some of the things that they revealed was that there were 3 separate tips that were received by people who were concerned about the safety of Huxley. It appears as though they started to receive these tips early in the month of June, and then they began to follow up with them and tried to find out where Huxley was. Through the course of this process, they were able to actually find him and locate him on around June 3rd. But the interesting thing is they spoke to a prosecutor in this case, and the sheriff in this case who is writing this was Detective Susanna Leonard. On June 2nd, she wrote, I spoke with Assistant Prosecutor Beth Mattoon, who was working with in regards to Mattoon advised that there is not much information that can be provided in regards to the adoption process and stated it is a legal process. She stated in foreign adoption has to be finalized there first, and then when they come back to the States, when they have the option to finalize the adoption here, but it is not required. Mattoon stated that the adoption was not finalized here. She stated that this secondary adoption is through the private adoption agency and whoever redacted would not be involved. She also stated that the probate court will do the adoption process, but the private adoption agency will conduct the home study and then the judge accesses that. She also did contact, and they stated that the process is confidential and there's no information at all that they could provide. So that the interesting thing here is that the prosecutor who starts looking into this, so this was 100% a multifaceted review of this case. She says he was adopted in China, but then they never came here and completed the adoption process, which is interesting because if they don't formalize the adoption here, that he doesn't get a birth certificate in the United States and he's not naturalized as a citizen in the United States. So why they didn't start the process for formal adoption is unclear to me. And they say that they end up doing some more digging and they find out that the adoption is still private, and they try to find out what's going on, and they end up finally making contact on June 3rd And they get 3 more referrals at this time. And this is at the point where they start to see some more concerns about, are the Stauffers doing stuff that could potentially be harmful to Huxley? What's going on with them? They state that they received multiple tips related to his well-being, and actually sit down with Myka and with James Stauffer to interview them. And she says, I advised, I'm assuming the Stauffers, that the allegations of human trafficking with Huxley were due to the money that was donated from their journey of him coming home from China. I advised of concerns that were used that the money was something other than, and that it was not given away to someone else. She stated they did a GoFundMe a long time ago and that they started the journey of the adoption and they earned a total of $800. Okay. She didn't just do a GoFundMe though. She also did the process with the puzzle pieces, where she told people to buy a puzzle piece, and then with every puzzle piece that they purchased, they would put together this puzzle, which would then show the photo of Huxley to people online. So she goes on to say, Myka stated they did a GoFundMe a long time ago when they started this journey of the adoption, and they earned a total of $800. She stated the adoption of Huxley was a total of $42,000, and they used every penny of that $800 to start the initial home study. And that was, they stated 8 years ago, he spent $34,000 to adopt his daughter. I don't know who they were talking to there. Anyways, they say that they're going to go do a well-being check. So here is what she said about, like, if they wanted to speak to her about whether or not the children were safe. And the detective Leonard writes, I advised of the concerns of the children not doing well with Huxley being gone, people seeing pictures of them online, and I just need to know that the children are safe. I advised that we need to know that the children are happy and not being abused. Stated that she got several phone calls after so he could get a break from being watched. So she goes on to say that multiple people had to quit. And so she said they had received multiple calls from people that had been watching Huxley, including medical professionals, and they stated they couldn't take care of him anymore. They stated multiple people had quit on them while they were with Huxley, and they stated it was because he had such severe aggression towards other kids. They also stated that one of the many reasons that contributed to this aggression was that, of their decision to rehome Huxley, was that they had to hire someone full-time, and it was very expensive, but they needed to keep the other kids safe in their house and the other younger kids safe. They also say that Huxley was physically going after their other kids. They say they have home video of it, they also state that it's not uncommon to see in kids who are adopted overseas, especially in Russia, because of FAS. Other kids typically do not do well in homes with other younger kids. They also stated that the doctor told them that his opinion, it was their recommendation that they place him in a home without any other children or older children or one older child or 2 older child. And they stated that there were too many people. They also stated that one of the major reasons was that there was just not enough supervision. So there was too many people and he could not get one-on-one supervision that he needed. And it became intolerable for them to continue. Myka said that her adult family members, like her dad, who's a big guy, had told her he couldn't keep Huxley safe from the other kids because he couldn't help Huxley. Apparently state that they had private therapists that came into their home for 7 hours a day, and the therapists have it all documented on their papers for the 7 months that they were there. They say 2 to 3 therapists were there every day for 7 hours a day, and they tried to control Huxley, which was all well documented on medical records. And she stated the therapists were there for 7 months, and in the last 2 months they were told there was nothing else they could do to help him. They also say that they had gotten so severe that even they could not control his behaviors. They also started him on ABA therapy, and they say at the end of ABA therapy, they had to hire someone else 24/7 to keep an eye on him so that he couldn't be in contact with any of the other kids. So apparently they don't have the proper supervision for him, or if they do have supervision, he's so aggressive according to them, which then has people quitting. that they can't get someone on there, that it's super expensive. It's interesting because if they had the proper care for him and the proper supervision, it makes me wonder like whether or not they would have actually had any sort of problems here. But the fact that they had so many children, which was an issue when they went into adoption, they told them that the amount of children of theirs could be a factor, which was why she said she could not adopt domestically because she already had 3 children, and then she had another baby. So she brought Huxley in with these behaviors and then added another child. And then they tried to actually, so then they go on and they try to actually speak to the nanny, but it doesn't sound that they even allow them to speak to the nanny. So she says that there was a nanny that was brought in, but they can't actually speak to her because Myka basically tells them that, you know, she wants their privacy respected. After that interview, they apparently like meet with the kids, and all of the kids look okay. They look healthy. They don't look like there's anything going on here. They do some more digging into the adoption, and it appears as though that this new family went through all kinds of background checks. They had 2 home studies, and it said that Myka stated it delayed the process and it was not necessary. So Myka appeared to be irritated that the new agency had wanted them to do 2 home studies. And she said, this is the first time a situation like this where basically the home study was done twice. And she says, I advised redacted that I wasn't sure about that, but at least they did everything they could to make sure it was a good home. So apparently she's irritated that it delayed it even longer because they did 2 home studies, which is actually good. So they did not 1, but 2 to make sure where they were going to be placing Huxley was the right fit. You know, at least he's in a good home and he's getting the care he needs for his aggressive behaviors. Now, one of the things that did come up was about that thumb guard, and this was the part that really sort of shocked me. So they started talking about like how, you know, there was that photo of him with his duct tape on it. Well, apparently he would like suck his thumb so raw he would get blisters. And so it says that the therapist had recommended a thumb guard for him, and he would just rip it off. And they said that they made a really bad judgment call, and they ended up putting duct tape on his finger. And that from that one-time incident, everyone is saying that, you know, they're doing these things to Huxley, and they're saying that it's completely false, and the therapists have documentation of that. But they do admit it was a bad judgment call, and they should have just paid $200 for the device. So they were told that he needed to have a thumb guard, but he ripped it off, and instead of replacing it, they admitted to using duct tape, and that they didn't want to pay because it was expensive, so they didn't. So here's what I'm getting. She doesn't want to buy a thumb guard for him. She's irritated by how expensive it seems it is to keep him safe and away from the other children. He's apparently having outbursts with the other kids, and he's, you know, she needs constant supervision, which is not different than what a lot of kids who are on the spectrum or who have, you know, any sort of developmental behavioral issues would need. The fact was here is that she had 3 other kids. She wanted to do this all herself, and I think it was just way more than she could handle. And it was expensive from her perspective to pay for people to be in her home and take care of Huxley. So they finally meet with Huxley. So here's the part where you all want to know. They meet with the adopted parents. They say when they meet with him that he was sitting on the lap of the new mother. She was singing to him. It says that the adoptive mother was singing a song to him as he was sitting on her lap smiling, and he appeared to be very happy and very well taken care of. I asked her if she was able to speak, and she asked Huxley to say mama, to which he was able to respond. They also say that she said ready, set, go, and he was able to say the go part of it. They also say that they introduced him and asked, you know, to meet with her to conduct a well-being check. She provided some information because he had gotten some mosquito bites, so she wanted them to make sure that, like, they had records from the urgent care that he had an allergy to mosquitoes and that it wasn't from any sort of issue. And they say they wouldn't do a full body search, but when they looked at him, there was no evidence of any problems with him, and he was doing really well. They say that they did a biological check on the other biological children that are in their home, and that there was no signs of issues with their children either. And they say, as far as the talk of possible human against them, it was determined that the process of this adoption is being conducted legally. At this time, the investigation will be closed with no further follow-up from our office. Wow. So, Huxley apparently is, doing well. He's with a family that has a mother that's taking care of him. He's being sung to. He's getting the medical care that he needs. He appeared happy. This is all phenomenal news. Whether or not they didn't appear to be able, they couldn't get the records, any of the medical records for him because of HIPAA. And so the police did tell them, like, unless you give us this information, we'll have to get a subpoena. So it didn't reference whether or not they got any of that information in the report that I received. But it did state that, once they saw the other kids were fine and Huxley was better with the other house. They're saying nothing's going to be charged. There was no human trafficking here, and there was nothing in terms of abuse, just a bad judgment call. Whether or not that settles your score here or that makes you feel better, I can't make that decision for you. So good news. Huxley's with his family. Huxley's doing well, and that's good. Whether or not Myka's telling the truth about what happened in her house, I don't know. Was it a case of not having the proper support? Was it the case of having too many children? Was it because it was too expensive? Was it because they just weren't prepared, or they didn't have the expertise or even the desire to help him? I have no idea. They claim that medical professionals, and this is what they told the police, told them to place him in another home, which makes me wonder if they just realized that Myka was in over her head. I don't know. We're never going to get the full story, unfortunately, but the good news today is that he is safe, he is doing well, and he is with a family that is better equipped to take care of him, and that's what matters most. So, what do you think? Do you believe her story with them? Do you buy that this is what happened? And what do you think about the fact that there's no charges here? Do you think this was a thorough investigation, or do you think they could have done more? Tell me what your thoughts are in the comments below. Bye, guys.